Well, the acting chief of Customs and Border Protection has announced that he is stepping down. John Sanders will be replaced by acting ICE Director Mark Morgan.
It's part of a pattern of high turnover at the Department of Homeland Security since Kirstjen Nielsen announced her resignation back in April. Morgan sat down with our Jeff Pegues.
Border Patrol is not a place for the kids. I think every American can agree with that. They are overcrowded. Those Border Patrol stations are not designed for kids.
ICE has taken in more than 400,000 migrants so far this year, which has overwhelmed U.S. border facilities. About 1,000 unaccompanied migrant children are currently in CBP custody. Would you want your family there?
I would never want my family to be detained.
Any family you know in a facility like that?
Just like I don't think anybody would want any of their family members being in a police station. So the best way to not to be in that detention facility is don't come to our country illegally.
Morgan disputes aspects of a recent DHS Inspector General's report, which cites egregious violations at some detention facilities.
I just don't agree that it's egregious conditions like a systemic problem.
What word would you use?
I would say that there are always challenges. I welcome non-governmental organizations to come in and do a check and balance. We should always try to get better.
It's estimated that
President Trump yesterday said that he is very concerned about poor border facility conditions, once again claiming without evidence that it's an improvement from his predecessor.
Just remember, we are treating them and doing a much better job than the Obama administration.
But it was because of President Trump's zero-tolerance policy last year that thousands of migrant children were systematically separated from their parents. And now, amid an unprecedented surge of migrants, DHS and CBP have been without a permanent leader for more than 2 months. For ICE, it's been nearly 2.5 years. Yet the Trump administration blames deplorable detention center conditions on a lack of money from Congress.
Mexico is doing much more for us than, frankly, the Democrats in Congress.
So Jeff Pegues joins us now from Washington. Jeff, every major Homeland Security agency handling immigration is currently without a permanent leader. Why might this be? Why is there sort of such turnover? I mean, we understand sort of the previous head, Kirstjen, you know, she took a lot of heat from the president. She was criticized a lot publicly, and we understand there was a lot of battles behind the scenes. But what do you know about what's happening with leadership here?
Well, clearly this is a signature issue for the president and his upcoming 2020 campaign. And so perhaps that's one reason. I mean, this is an issue that continues to intensify along the border. In other words, you know, the numbers of migrants crossing the border, they're spiking. They're spiking. You see these crowded conditions in these detention facilities, and these are images clearly that the president does not like. And he has blamed people in the past, whether it is the former Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen or others, and perhaps that's why we're seeing so much turnover. Who knows? But it obviously injects so much uncertainty into this issue that continues to get worse, it appears, at least along the border.
You know, Jeff, one of the things that strikes me is you have John Sanders departing over this outcry of the treatment of children at these migrant detention centers. And, you know, leadership starts at the very top, in other words, the President of the United States. But there are regular men and women all across this country who are carrying out some of these directives. And now we're seeing the results of some of them with regards to these detention facilities. Is it that it's just become too difficult, too overwhelming for some of these officials to deal with these issues that are surrounding immigration right now? And that is the reason why you're seeing such a large turnover.
Well, it is overwhelming. I mean, if you see the images and, you know, certainly in covering this beat, what we've been inundated by are these Inspector General reports, which continue to point out these deplorable conditions, not only at CBP detention facilities, but also at ICE facilities as well. And so you see what people on the ground are dealing with amid this shakeup in the leadership ranks. And like any other company or organization, if you have changes in leadership, well, that type of uncertainty filters down to the rank and file. And so it leads to different policy decisions which throw what is already the standard in some of these facilities and in some of these areas of Customs and Border Protection into disarray. And so while the president might want to, the president wants to see an improvement in the situation along the border, this uncertainty in leadership is likely not contributing to that. And we see it in the images. And in fact, we have heard from sources that one of the other issues is controlling the message. These officials in these government agencies that deal with immigration issues, they are being bombarded because daily there is some incident or some image that they have to respond to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sort of going through my mental sort of file of the things that the president, what policies or directives that the president has either tweeted out or mentioned sort of off the cuff, talking to reporters, that then sort of flipped around on, whether it was tariffs if Mexico doesn't comply. Oh, Mexico's complying enough, so we're not going to do that. We're going to have these surprise raids starting next week. Oh, we'll give you 2 weeks before we kick those raids into gear. And even sort of this news of these young children who, after the reporting that they were living in deplorable conditions in a detention center, then we found out that a number of them were moved out of that detention center only to be returned back. Some of these officials must be getting whiplash trying to determine exactly what their marching orders are.
Well, reporters are getting whiplash too, because minute by minute something seems to change. In fact, someone asked me yesterday whether I was surprised by the shakeup, and I flatly responded no. I mean, it's just, you just never know minute to minute what is going to happen. And certainly there are people in these government agencies that feel the same way. You're just not surprised anymore by any shakeups. And you just look to, well, who's next in line and how long will they be there? Right now, as you know, based on this interview, Mark Morgan is the guy. He is someone who seems to have gained the trust of President Trump. And so he is rising quickly through the ranks. How long will he be there? Well, we just don't know. It's one of those things that we just have to watch given the speed with which leadership is changing in these agencies.
All right, Jeff, thank you very much.